Welcome back to Inside the Helmet. My name is Michael, and I'm your host. Joining me today is nobody. My dad, who has been with us for the past 9 weeks, right? This is episode 14. He joined um, episode 5. So the past 8 weeks, I suppose. He couldn't make it today. I'm sure he'll be back next week. But he couldn't make it to the show today. And so you're stuck with me. I hope that's not too big of a problem for you. Please don't leave yet. Stick around till the end. Kicking us off, I wanted to talk about because my playing days aren't quite over yet. I am going to be going into my senior season as a college quarterback, and so I wanted to, because I can still relate to it and speak on it very well, I wanted to talk about the kind of schedule of a week of practice, at least for a college football program, because of course, fans don't necessarily keep up with practice all that much and really know what's going on or any of that. And so I wanted to kind of shed a little bit of light onto and into the inside of how that works. So, the way that I've experienced it is that, of course, in college football, you play on Saturdays, of course, at least most of the time. And so, how the week of practice will actually start on Tuesday. Monday was our day off, per se, from practice. It's purely focus on school, get schoolwork done, rest your body. Um, so, Tuesday was our first day of practice. And one thing to know is that the week always would start off the hardest that it's going to be, and then get lighter progressively as the week goes on. Which makes sense, as you get closer and closer to the game, you want to be less intense on the physical toll of practice so that your players' bodies can be as rested and fresh as they can be without sacrificing, of course, preparation. So, Tuesday would typically be your longest day of practice. We would typically start practice around 4 in the afternoon in the Texas sun. So, early in the season, that was awful. It wasn't too bad. I'm used to it. Anyway, and then we would go until about 6:30 or so, almost 7 into the evening. So pretty long days of practice. Certainly, I'm sure if you asked if my dad was here, he might be able to say, "Oh, it was so much tougher, with 2 days and all that. 3 hour practices every day in the hot sun with no water breaks." But he's ancient, so times have thankfully changed since then, and people have gotten wiser to the importance of rest and hydration and not killing yourself. Because believe it or not, it's hard to score touchdowns if you're dead. Anyway, so Tuesday typically be our um, hardest day for practice. And then Wednesday would also similarly, we call them work days. Tuesday and Wednesday, those are your work days. Put your hand in the dirt, put your head down, and just go to work. It's very heavy physical workload, getting a lot of reps. And then Thursday, you slow things down a bit. Really focus more on the mental aspect, really honing it in. Running plays, maybe not full speed, maybe not full tackle or anything like that. More so taking mental reps, making sure you're mentally prepared, of course, because you can be as physically in shape and prepared as you want. If you don't know what you're doing, you're useless. So Thursday is a lot slower, more heavily focused on mental preparation. Then Friday is always basically a walkthrough. You're really not going to want to exert a lot of physical, well, effort right before, the day before a game. If you play on Saturday, then Friday, you're basically going, half speed at most the majority of the time. Because the last thing that any coach is going to want to have happen is their running back or their wide receiver or their linemen are all tired and gassed and sore from a Friday practice. And so, Friday will be, of course, the easiest of all easy days. And then, of course, you have your game on Sunday, Saturday. I apologize. And then Sunday, I was getting ahead of myself. Sunday will be the day to come in, get treatment if you get banged up during the game, as well have meetings, and even a walkthrough in some cases out on the field. Um, Maybe to kind of go over a few things that you saw on film. But yeah, that is kind of how a week of practice in college football is organized. Moving right along, we had some games happen in the NFL this past week. We talked about last week the Cowboys were playing the Detroit Lions on Thursday night, and it didn't go very well. I'm sad as a Cowboys fan to say the Cowboys lost to the Lions 44-30. Um, it was not our best defensive effort. We've been saying it all year that the Cowboys defense has been sorely lacking in all efforts, in all aspects of football, unfortunately. And the Lions just walked all over us. Jahmyr Gibbs, Javonte Williams absolutely ran all over us. Yeah, our defense gave up way more than we needed to. We scored 30 points and still lost by 2 scores, which is unacceptable. I distinctly remember sitting there, I believe, when the Lions maybe scored the touchdown to give them 27 points. And it was just such blown coverage. It wasn't even like it was a long touchdown or anything, but it was just a simple goal line fade or something along those lines. But I just remember going, "Thank you, Matt Eberflus. You just knocked the Cowboys out of the playoffs." And then the Cowboys started rallying back, and so I almost took it back. But then the Lions pulled ahead again at the end, and it was all for naught. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Matt Eberflus. Of course, if you don't know, he's the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, and he is the person I've been placing basically all of the blame on for our defensive struggles because it is his fault. He deserves it. Um, I've heard of the Eagles fans going and throwing eggs at their offensive coordinator's house. Matt Eberflus should get the same treatment times 10 for his atrocities he has done to our defense. Not someone I'm very happy with at all. Something I am happy about, though, is the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday night losing to the Chargers. And Jalen Hurts, of course, famously had, was it a 4 or 5 turnover day, including that one play that I'm sure we have all seen, where he threw an interception, went and the ball was forced out of the defender's hands, the one who intercepted it. Jalen Hurts recovered the ball and tried to advance it, make yards with it because he didn't just fall on it. And then he fumbled the ball. So he committed 2 turnovers in one play, which is maybe the only time in NFL history, is why I've been seeing that has happened, which is just really funny. I don't think Jalen Hurts is a bad guy or anything, but I have never, regardless of the fact that he is an Eagle, And even regardless of the fact that he went to Oklahoma in college for some time, I've never liked him as a quarterback. I've never thought that he was very good as a passer. Sure, he's shown moments, of course. I mean, he's in the NFL for a reason. You know, you don't get to the NFL by being just completely terrible, like nothing good about you at all. So he's had flashes. I'm pretty sure nearly every NFL quarterback has, though. So I've never been particularly big on him, and the fact that him doing poorly hurts the Eagles only makes me happier. In other news, last week the Texans, of course, we had our friend Jay Jensen on the show a couple weeks back, and he's a Houston Texans fan, being from that area, and they have continued their resurgence that they've been having, taking down the Kansas City Chiefs, who are now looking like they are going to go from making the Super Bowl to missing the playoffs entirely, which someone please correct me if I'm wrong, but the last time I can think of that happening was a decade ago with the Denver Broncos when they won Super Bowl 50 and then promptly missed the playoffs once Peyton Manning retired. Anyway, those are storylines I wanted to cover from last week in the NFL. Going on to this week, the Cowboys. See, Cowboys. Ooh, we play on Sunday night. Play in Dallas against the Minnesota Vikings. We're definitely in must win territory. I think we are basically past the point of hoping for a playoff spot. We need to hope that we win out and that the Eagles lose out. If we look right now, the Eagles are playing against, oh, the Raiders in Philadelphia. Well, that's great. It would be great if the Eagles could choke a game in which they are favored by 11.5 at home against one of the worst teams in the NFL. Um, I will say, if there is any year that it'll happen, it would be this year. With how up and down and sideways and backwards it's been. But I'm not holding my breath on Raiders' victory in Philadelphia. What I will anticipate is at least the Cowboys will win and keep doing what we have to do, which that's all we can do, right? We need to keep winning out, so we'll just have to keep kind of tracking it. Um, but it's an uphill battle. There's no doubt about that. Towards the playoffs, it's a pretty long shot for sure. But with how the Eagles have looked lately, I would not be too surprised if the Cowboys are able to squeak in atop the NFC East, because I don't think we're gonna make the playoffs as a wild card. Certainly not. There are too many good teams, you know, between the heck, just between the Rams, 49ers, and Seahawks. You know, the two teams that don't win that division. You know, because the Cardinals are already out. But between the Seahawks, Rams, and 49ers, one of them has to win the division. And truly, any of them could. My money's on the Rams, but any of them could still technically. But then the other two are going to make the playoffs. They are. It's all but guaranteed. And then you have the matter of the Lions and the Bears and the Packers. And of course, only, you know, maybe two, maybe three of them, if somehow two of them make a wild card. So Cowboys are not making it as a wild card. We would have to have so many other teams lose so many games that they have left in what is, you know, 4 weeks left, that it we our only hope basically is that the Eagles continue losing and that we're able to jump them, which it could happen. You never know. Also quickly touching base on college football, because we also try and talk about that as well every week. Of course, our beloved Texas Longhorns. That's how my dad says it, right? Um, Our Texas Longhorns did not make the college football playoff, which I understand. We going into conference championship play. We of course weren't in the SEC championship at all, but we were on the outside looking in, going into conference championship time, and so yeah, I'm not all that surprised that we didn't make it in. Of course, I obviously we are better than like Tulane and James Madison, obviously, but you know they automatically get in because they won their conference and all that. So good for them. Certainly, always good to have an underdog story. I'm not quite sure how Oklahoma got in over us, but that's a mystery for the committee to solve and probably answer their hate mails. I won't incite any more violence that than has already probably started. Um, yeah, unfortunate, but of course we get to go play in the Cheez It Bowl, so yeah, it's not all bad. You know, we had a very concerning start to the year, and so to have come this close, even given our loss to Florida, you know, to be able to come back and beat a few of the teams that we ended up beating, like Texas A&M, yeah, and certainly the win over Oklahoma. We got the two that mattered the most in terms of like wipe all the rankings, wipe all the like peripherals from it. Like the two teams that we always want to beat every year are Oklahoma and A&M, and we took care of business very well against both of those teams, and so we can still hold our heads up pretty high as Longhorns. That's about all I have to say about that. Moving over, one thing that you have to be happy about, I guess, or disappointed about, depending on how much of an F1 fan you are. Without my dad here, we get to talk more about Formula One. So yippee. Um, Maybe the last time you hear me talk about F1 for a couple months, as the F1 season has now concluded. And as a Max Verstappen fan, I am very sad to report that despite Max Verstappen claiming victory in Abu Dhabi in the final race of the season, clinching his eighth victory of the season, most in Formula One this year, and clinching his eighth pole position, which is where you qualify first for a race, which is also eight pole positions is more than anybody else in Formula One this year. He was not able to win the championship because Lando Norris, the championship leader, would have had to finish fourth and only take away 12 points for Max to win, claiming 25 points and therefore close the 12-point gap going into the race on Sunday. But unfortunately, Lando Norris finished third, therefore claiming 15 points, which was enough to stay ahead by 2 points and win his first Formula One World Championship. Of course, it was always going to be the long shot of all long shots, with Max having been 104 points off of, at the time, Oscar Piastri, who was in the lead of the championship. But if you think about it, Max did close a 104-point gap to Oscar. It just so happens that in that same time, Lando also did enough to pass Oscar and stay ahead of Max. So it's incredibly unfortunate. And if you're on Formula One social media at all, um, you surely have seen a million different posts about people pinpointing, oh, Max lost points here, Max lost points there, Max, this or that, or like what little minor things. And heck, we've even done it on the show, maybe a month or so ago. We had a little segment where we answered a viewer question about how many points had Max lost out on over the course of the season due to things that maybe weren't entirely his fault. So I'm not blameless in that either. But at the end of the day, even though Max did not win the championship, which I am certainly more disappointed about than my words could ever convey on the show. You truly have no idea. It's been a few days. It happened on Sunday. Now it's Wednesday evening. So, it's a little bit older in my brain, but I was in such a state of shock and disbelief at the time. It was unbelievable that it had happened that way because I had truly psyched myself up so high to believe that it was going to happen. Not just hope, I believed it would, certainly. Um, and so for it to not end up happening the way I thought it would is, of course, always going to be disappointing. But at the end of the day, what can you do? As much hate as Lando Norris gets, and as much of it that I feel is deserved, given his demeanor and cockiness and arrogance in his short time that he's had at the top, um, let us not forget that that just a few years ago, in 2021, when he was in a McLaren that was very much in the midfield, people were praising him, talking about how much talent he had and how if he was given the right machinery, he could be a worthy world champion. He has raw pace, he has raw speed and talent. Certainly in qualifying, which in this year of all years, with how big and wide and heavy the cars are and how narrow the tracks are, a lot of people refer to this year, this past season of F1 in 2025 as a qualifying championship. And some people have already made posts about it online, taking just the qualifying positions and assigning the points as if that was the race finish order. Lando would have won the qualifying championship as well, and by an even wider margin. So Lando is undoubtedly quick over a lap. Sure, yes. He was in a McLaren that achieved the second largest gap in the Constructors' Championship from first to second of all time. Sure, he had a very dominant car. And believe me, I am no Lando fan. Even though my hat is orange, it is Max orange, not Lando orange. I absolutely hated every moment of watching that papaya car cross the finish line first at any given race this year. But Lando did what he needed to do. He scored the most points, and no one can ever take that away from him. It's not like he necessarily sabotaged, at least that we know of, anybody. It's not like he cheated. Sure, there are certainly questionable moments with the team orders and maybe screwing Oscar, his teammate, over. But at the end of the day, Lando, as much as I've praised Max and his late season charge and his run of form, Lando was nearly keeping step with him. For sure, he had a faster car. Certainly in places like Mexico, and even in Qatar. McLaren got the strategy completely wrong in Qatar by being the only ones to not pit under the safety car or virtual safety car, whichever it was, early on. and that was basically the only reason Max was able to win that race. But Lando certainly put it all together, despite maybe some inconsistencies at times. He won the world championship, and I'm gonna probably go throw up after I say this, but he earned it. He deserved it. I am a fan of the P1 podcast. It is a Formula One podcast um, that is run by Matt Gallagher and Tom Bellingham, two British Formula One fans, and Tommy is a very big Max fan. I think he put it, if I'm remembering correctly, I really like the way he put it, that maybe it was Matt. Either way, one of them said on an episode of their podcast that if you look back at all the history of world champions in Formula One, the drivers' championship is usually won by a driver in the best car. People have gotten kind of altered in their minds of like their image of what a Formula One world champion should be, thanks to drivers like Max or like Lewis, who are, just so otherworldly good that they put the rest of the grid to shame, that they forget that we've had some champions who maybe weren't even the best driver that year, but they benefited from being in a really good car. And Formula One is a team sport. It's not a sprint. You're driving a heavily complicated piece of machinery that takes so many countless minds to be able to build and put together and keep it running and keep it reliable and stay one step ahead of the competition. So I all year, for how much I have been dreading anybody but Max winning the championship, and I have just been cringing so hard at all the McLaren success and how egotistical they have gone about handling it. McLaren are sore winners. I think Lando is a sore winner. I do. I am not a fan of his demeanor or his attitude. A lot of times, it feels like every time he opens his mouth, that he just digs himself deeper and deeper into a hole in my mind of how much I like him. I want to like him. He seems like a good guy, but he seems like he's kind of been corrupted by suddenly being given a good car and wanting it to be. I think what he's seen everybody maybe discrediting him, saying, oh, he's only this or he's only that because of the car, because of this, because of that. He just wants people to appreciate him. He does. He's just insecure. And I get it. I understand it. He wants people to give him the credit that he feels like he deserves. And I'll give him credit. He's a good driver. He's fast. He is certainly not the least deserving champion of all time. That being said, do I think that Max would have only won the championship in the McLaren by 2 points from somebody not even in the same superior car? No. If Max was in the McLaren, take out Oscar, take out Lando, or just instead of Max being in a Red Bull, put him in a third McLaren that's equal to the other two. And the championship is over by Austin. It is. It just is. For the amount of times that Lando and Oscar had to bicker with one another and take points off of one another, they would have been doing that for second and third, not first and second. With all that being said, I want to talk about Yuki Tsunoda before I sign off this evening. I started watching Formula One in right before the 2024 season. So I admit it, I'm a relatively new fan. I am proud to say I have never seen a full episode of Drive to Survive. I have seen clips like on Instagram or something, and I think I even started to watch the first episode of either the 2023 or 2024 season, but I didn't finish it. Not even close. I mean, I don't even think I got 5 minutes into it. I'm not a Drive to Survive fan. I know there's the whole stigma around them not being very knowledgeable. I am anti Drive to Survive. Okay. I just want to put that out there to give some perspective so that I don't get comments about, oh, he's just a new fan. He doesn't know wheel. He doesn't know ball. I do not claim to be the most knowledgeable or most expert historian on Formula One, but I certainly try my best to be a genuine fan of the sport itself. I try to essentially what I'm trying to say is I try and be an old fashioned fan, not just a new modern fan that doesn't really understand the sport. Where was I going with this? Yes, I was giving you a backstory on when I started watching Formula One. So yes, I started watching uh, right before the 2024 season began, and my original opinion of Yuki Tsunoda, my introduction to Yuki Tsunoda was him being loud and angry and immature on the radio after the Bahrain Grand Prix, which of course was the opening round of the 2024 championship year. And so I didn't really like Yuki at first. I didn't. But over time, he grew on me. A lot of time, basically every driver that I didn't like originally has grown on me. And that's incredible to see deeper into the lives of these drivers and to really appreciate them as people and what they go through. Anyway, I of course felt going into this season, 2025, that Yuki was the most deserving driver to get the step up to the Red Bull. I was a little confused when I saw that Liam Lawson had gotten the promotion initially over Yuki, but I chalked it up as okay, maybe they're foreseeing Yuki being out the door, maybe going to Aston Martin when Honda goes and helps with their engines instead, and the whole Yuki Japanese Honda connection. It makes sense that Honda would want to take the Japanese driver with them. So that's why I thought Liam Lawson got the step up. That and maybe, oh, he's younger, he has a higher ceiling, whatever. But then Liam didn't do very well in the first couple races, and they made the swap, put Yuki in the car like they originally should. But I also don't like how they handled it with how quickly they got rid of Liam and just relegated him back to the Racing Bulls team. I didn't think that was very fair to him. Like, okay, you're gonna put some faith in him, but you're gonna give up on him very easily. Like, stick to your guns, Red Bull. It's a mess. Red Bull's a mess. I it's a shame. Anyway, Yuki didn't do very well, of course, as we all know if you've been keeping up with the season. And it culminated in him being dropped. Um, he was dropped. He's now relegated to being the reserve driver for the Red Bull team because Isaac Hadjar, of course, the what was just a rookie with the Racing Bulls, got the step up. He is the newest um, fodder, so to speak. Yeah, he's the newest one to kind of be led like a sheep to the slaughter to be Max Verstappen's teammate. But before he got replaced, Yuki's final act was to try his best to keep Lando at bay after his pit stop, to defend and slow Lando down, much like Sergio Perez in 2021 Abu Dhabi, to help Max Verstappen win his first championship, Yuki was supposed to try and help Max win his fifth by slowing Lando down, forcing him to get caught up in a battle with the likes of Leclerc and Russell and anyone else that could catch up. But then Yuki didn't do a very good job of defending. Went one way, swerved one way, then swerved another way, and it ended up with Lando overtaking him rather easily. Granted, he did go off track. All four wheels, you've seen the pictures, all four wheels were off track, and Yuki ended up with a penalty. Now, do I think Yuki should have gotten penalized? Yeah, absolutely, he should have. This is actually another thing that I saw or watched them talk about on the P1 podcast. So I'll kind of regurgitate a little bit, or at least kind of align my thoughts and feelings, because I do agree with what they say. I'm not just trying to steal content. That's despicable. I would never try and do that, but I like the way they put it, and it makes a lot of sense. So a lot of people are saying that Lando, because he went off track to overtake, should have gotten a penalty. And I agree with that. I agree. Lando should have gotten a penalty, either a 5 or a 10-second penalty. But here's why it's a little messy. At the end of the day, Yuki didn't get penalized for forcing another driver off the track. He got penalized for making a double move. He swerved one way, then swerved another way, and that's dangerous. So he got rightfully penalized for that. But if you penalize Lando, this is what the guys on the P1 podcast are talking about. If you penalize Lando for that incident when he felt like he was forced to go off the track to make the move, then you're essentially setting a precedent that you can essentially force your opponent who's trying to overtake you into getting a penalty if you're willing to take a penalty yourself, possibly for erratic driving. However, that's the little part that I don't necessarily agree with, because had Yuki been penalized for forcing a driver off the track, which is a penalty, is a thing you can get penalized for, then yes, you should not penalize Lando because he only was off track because he was forced off track. Lando was not forced off track. Yuki wasn't penalized for doing so, and if you watch, Lando had plenty of room. Not only, of course, on the other side of Yuki, like Lando was passing Yuki on the left. This is my left. So of course he had plenty of room off to the right side of Yuki, the wide side. But if you look, there's room on the track on the left side. Sure, not a lot of room, but there is room. Lando did not have to go all four wheels outside the white line. So I do believe in this instance, Lando should have been penalized. Now, if we look, Lando Norris finished 16 and a half seconds behind Max Verstappen. Charles Leclerc in fourth ended up finishing 23 and a quarter seconds behind. So that's what? Almost 7 seconds. So typically the minimum penalty that you'll get in Formula One is a 5 second penalty. That's what Yuki got. And so assuming Lando would have only gotten a 5 second penalty, of course we saw Charles try and chase after Lando to bring the fight to him to see if he could help Max win the championship by making Lando finish fourth. But the Ferrari fell off. Charles fell quite a ways back, as you can see, from being almost within striking distance, a second or two behind Lando, to falling almost 7 seconds or whatever behind him. So a 5 second penalty would not have put Lando behind Charles. It wouldn't have. Now, a 10 second penalty would have, but I think it might be a bit extreme to have wished for that. So at the end of the day, I don't think it matters what happened, what didn't happen. At the end of the day, there will be a new driver sporting the number 1 on their car in 2025, And now all that we have to look forward to this offseason is what number will Max choose? Will he go back to the 33, or will he change his number? Because that is a new rule for 2026 that drivers are allowed to change their number within certain limitation. And the two main candidates that Max might change his number to are 3, which of course is his like favorite number. But when he entered Formula One, it belonged to Daniel Ricciardo, and so he could not take it. Therefore, he went just double it, 33, or 69, which is honestly the one that I want him to take because it would just be funny. Because Max just seems so unserious at times to people who really look at that side, and it would just be really funny. But regardless, I guess when that time comes and Max makes his decision, then we will see. But with that being said, hey, would you look at that? All we had to do to keep it under an hour or so would be just to have me do it all by myself because we're at 41 minutes and it's about to be over. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. Oh, one more thing I want to announce. I if you follow me on my social medias, which you should, be great if you could support me. Um, I dabble in making gaming related videos. I've been playing Minecraft and Grand Theft Auto and Rocket League, all these fun types of games. And I really like this whole podcast format. And in addition to sports, of course, as you can assume, I'm really into video games. And so I'm thinking of starting up a video game podcast. I'm not going to try and incorporate video games into inside the helmet because I don't think it would fit very well. Already ham fisting Formula One into a football podcast feels a little out of place at times. And it feels like it's just serving the purpose of letting me get it out of my system because it's something I'm interested in. But I'm thinking of starting up a whole new podcast. And I could maybe use some help suggesting maybe what games you want me to talk about. I want it to be very community open and driven. I want to talk about what you guys want to hear. And so that goes for this podcast as well. If you have any suggestions, what you want us to talk about, of course, when my dad is able to join again, please do not hesitate to leave a comment, give some feedback, tell us what you want to hear. That way we can make the show more interesting, talking about things that y'all want to hear rather than just what we think you want to hear. So, your feedback is always greatly appreciated, as is your support on all social medias. But yeah, be on the lookout for maybe a new podcast. Um, I still haven't come up with a name for it yet, so if you have any ideas for that as well, leave a comment. Yeah, follow me on social medias. Michael underscore Ludi is my main account, my personal account. Then MSL12 Games gaming account, and then of course Inside the Helmet, Coach Ludi, all that stuff. On Instagram, YouTube, everything. Um, yeah. With that being said, thank you guys for tuning in. If you made it this long, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.